Well, if you've been following my videos lately, you know some major events are about to take place in Bible prophecy. Number one, Mr. Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, met with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry yesterday and tried to get reassurance from Mr. Kerry that he would use his veto against any attempt by the Palestinians and the international community to pass in the Security Council a resolution that would call for Israel to get out of the West Bank by November of 2016. But after his meeting in Rome, he did come away with no solid guarantee that that would be the case, and the resolution is supposed to be brought before the UN Security Council tomorrow. That would be Wednesday. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. Now, since I made my last video, I declared that it's possible that during that meeting that Mr. Kerry would give Prime Minister Netanyahu an ultimatum to get back to negotiations or face a possible UN resolution that they would not veto. But since then, I have read several different credible intelligence reports that might indicate that that would be exactly what Mr. Netanyahu wants. And many are saying that he gave his speech the other day that said he would not buckle or bend to international pressure nor be dictated to the Palestinians. And now I am hearing basically just the opposite as to what the U.S. may and how they may respond. And many are saying that the U.S. Pressuring Israel to get back into negotiations or else they would not veto this resolution may be the exact opposite of what the U.S. will end up doing. And some are even saying that Mr. Netanyahu does want the U.S. to come in and not veto the resolution because it would give him a major lift in the polls as we lead up to the election and kind of serve as somewhat of a rallying cry for the right to come together and for voters to vote Mr. Netanyahu in, because he'll be seen as a very strong leader that challenges the West and also the international community not to buckle under. And that very well may be what would get him elected. So what I'm hearing now from many analysts is that the U.S. basically will not challenge Mr. Netanyahu in any way, because they don't want to be seen as an anti-Israel type of government that stands against Netanyahu. And I guess the plan would be, at least from the analysis, are that the U.S. don't want to give the Israeli public any reason to think that Mr. Netanyahu is a strong leader and stands up for Israel against the West. So it's very possible that they very well may veto this resolution, or it may not even be brought before the Security Council, because I think both the EU and the United States are getting wise to the possible tactics that may be being used against the West to try to bolster Mr. Netanyahu's chance of gaining re-election. So neither the West nor the European Union wants to be seen as a flashpoint against Mr. Netanyahu as to give him a boost in the elections. They both want him out. And now it's being said that the only way they're going to get him out is to let the Israeli people feel as though he does not have, he's not going in the direction that they want for the future. So this has become a very tactical plan that both the European Union and the United States has taken to kind of sit back and see what happens. Neither party wants to get involved in Israeli elections because that could very well backfire on the international community. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow when this resolution is in fact brought before the UN Security Council. Now here's the second part that I wanted to bring up, and this is out of Stratford. It says, Russia, crash of ruble is a critical situation, official says. The rapid decline of the ruble, about 13% in one day, is a critical situation, and the Central Bank of Russia will react with additional measures soon. The bank's first deputy chairman, Sergei Savetsko, I guess is how you pronounce his name, said December 16. We could not imagine this in our worst nightmare a year ago, Savetsko told Interfax. The bank hiked its key interest rate to 17% overnight, but despite the rate increase, the ruble continued to fall sharply throughout the day, declining by 20% in the span of only a few hours before stabilizing a bit. Savetsko expressed optimism that the country would survive the crisis, but said the situation would be comparable to the worst period of 2008. And a follow-up Stratford article also says U.S.-Russia has made constructive moves, Kerry says. Speaking at a press conference in London on December 16, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that Russia had made constructive moves in the past couple of days over the conflict in Ukraine. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty reported. Kerry said that sanctions against Russia were introduced to persuade Russia to stop interfering in Ukraine, not to hurt the Russian people. The comments come as the ruble dramatically declined in value over a matter of hours, affected by both falling world oil prices and Western sanctions. Actually, I just listened to a video conference from Stratford, and basically it's not so much the sanctions that are bothering and hurting the Russian people, but more the falling oil prices. And that's pretty much Russia's fault, because they're pretty much a one-trick pony. They have such a tremendous reliance upon natural gas and oil, or should I say the oil sector, that it's going to be difficult for them to rebound. Some have speculated that Saudi Arabia and some of the OPEC countries have allowed this downward spiral to not only hurt the United States shale oil industry, but also to put a dent in Russia as well. Now, let's face it, Russia needs $100 a barrel oil in order to survive. I mean, they're in pretty sad shape. And with the sanctions in place by the U.S. and Europe, Russia needs to refinance its debt that it has. It doesn't necessarily need new debt, it just needs to refinance the debt it has. And with the sanctions in place, that's not being taken care of. And even if the sanctions weren't in place, many analysts believe that not too many banks would touch it anyway on the world stage. So they're in a very difficult spot, and so is Mr. Putin. A lot of people think that Putin is bulletproof, and so far it has not affected his popularity ratings. But if this carries on for a long time, that very well could change. And again, another myth that's out there that Mr. Putin is untouchable, that would change drastically if in fact this continued for a long time. But as I've said many times, I believe that Russia would start a war of some sort, and I should say a strategic war that would allow prices of oil to increase. And frankly, I'm shocked that this hasn't already happened, where they've wrangled Iran or somebody else to try to force the price of oil up, because we know that if a nation who has oil does cause something to happen, the price of oil immediately takes a bump, and sometimes a major bump, depending on what happens. And frankly, if I were Russia, I would get Iran to get in contact with some of their contacts down in Yemen or in Bahrain and try to rustle up some type of terrorist attack on some of the oil-rich nations such as Saudi Arabia or Qatar or United Arab Emirates. Maybe blow up a pipeline or whatever the case may be, or stir something up in Libya. But whatever the case is, the price of oil needs to go up sometime soon, or Russia's going to be in deep, deep trouble. Now, all that said, it's probably more likely that Russia is going to attack or try to take over the Middle East in some kind of way. As we know, in Ezekiel 38, the Bible does say that Russia would come down with Turkey and Iran and a few other nations to take a spoil. And it probably won't just be Israel. It will probably be a few other nations on their way down to Israel. And the Bible clearly says that when they do come up against Israel, that many will protest, but nobody will take a stand with Israel. And even though this is speculation, I do believe at some point in time that Russia is going to have to make a move, and it very well could be the move of trying to take the Middle East. And there's one X factor that we simply don't know about the end times, and that is what truly will happen once the rapture takes place. How will this world react? What will be the overall effect of the Spirit being removed? We simply do not know what's going to happen on the other side of the rapture and what effect is going to take place. I've always said that this world will go from natural to supernatural in a matter of seconds when that day does come forth. And I shudder to say what could happen and what will happen during this time. Yes, today this is an evil world, but you know what? When the whole world is evil, with absolutely no light to avoid the darkness, this world is going to be a horrible, horrible place to live. So those are the two things that I wanted to bring you today as we see the Russian ruble falling. And it will likely continue to fall, and the Russian economy will turn from bad to worse. We need to keep our eyes on what's going to happen in that part of the region. And even more important, as the international community tries to force Israel to get out of the West Bank and to create a Palestinian state, it's a matter of will this pressure cause the Israeli people to finally vote out Mr. Netanyahu and put in another more compromising leader that will work with the international community and create a Palestinian state and also a peace agreement with the more moderate Arab nations. And, I hate to say it, but I feel that we're moving in that direction. Unfortunately, the Lord is in control, and even though Israel and their leadership may make silly, destructive moves, in the end, He will be victorious over their enemies. And if you don't know the Lord tonight, today is the day of salvation. 150,000 people die every single day. And the Bible says the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Don't be one day too late to come to the Lord. And you Christians, if you have lost loved ones who you have been unsuccessful in reaching, you may want to get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Forget the fact that it is a Tribulation Period Survival Guide. It's a conversation piece that I believe will pique the interest of lost people. And the very first thing that this book tells a lost person to do is to come to the Lord before it's everlasting too late. So if you tried unsuccessfully to reach your lost friends and loved ones, this very well may be a source that they may be interested in, and in the process could realize that they do need the Lord as Savior. And as always, there is a free version. You can click on the button up at the top left-hand corner, or you can go to the About section and get the paperback version. And again, thank you for supporting the Calvary Prophecy Report. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.